That's the beautiful thing about real estate. I mean, if you guys want to make an impact, when it's right, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
It is not, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to sell it. It's just like, I'm converting fiat cash into an asset that you get tax write-offs from, cash flow, and long-term appreciation.
You're listening to the Real Returns podcast, where we learn how real investments can make a real impact. Join your hosts, Andrew and Dan, as they share stories and interview business leaders on how real estate and other forms of investment can create meaningful change for individuals and communities around the world.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Returns podcast. I am your host, Andrew Reichert. I'm joined with an incredible guest today. I think you're going to really enjoy today's show. I kind of feel like he needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Grant Cardone is the founder of Cardone Capital. He's a New York Times bestselling author of The 10X Rule, and he's a global speaker. He really has been reaching millions talking about real estate investing and really thinking about and talking about the kinds of things that we talk about on this show, in particular, the impact that real estate can have. We were just chatting a little bit. He's doing some awesome things with Bitcoin and real estate together in a fund, 5 billion of AUM, 15,000 units, crowdfunded, really billions on, online, and created that market where it's been hard to create liquidity these days. So super excited to have you. Welcome to the show, Grant Cardone.
Great to be with you, and I look forward to whatever happens here in the next few moments.
Yeah, me too. So why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about your story? Many folks see where you are today and are like, wow, that's amazing. But can you just talk a little bit about how you got there?
Yeah, so I grew up in a middle-class family. I am a product of the American dream and hard work and discipline and doing the right things with money once you get it. And I grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. My dad died when I was 10 years old. He loved real estate, by the way. He was a stockbroker, Andrew, but on the weekends, he would cheat on his stockbroker career and shop real estate with the family. So I remember being 6, 7, 8 years old. My dad would drive the neighborhood with 5 kids in the back seat talking about, oh, that house and this house. And so I don't know if that's how I got it in my blood, but my dad also always said, hey, make an impact, make a difference, do the right thing. And when I was 28 years old, I started buying real estate. I used $3,000 to buy a single family home, rented it. I was making $200 a month positive cash flow. I was like, man, I'm gonna get rich doing this. This is it.
Right.
And so I've been hooked on real estate ever since that. I was a salesman at the time, and I would earn my commissions, and I would take the commissions and I would go buy real estate. I bought, 2 single family homes in 30 days, and I was off to the races. And that was, some 15,000 units ago.
Yeah. Wow. And what you've accomplished is exactly like you said, the American dream. And, many of our listeners have accomplished that, and some are still working on accomplishing that. What's one thing that you would say to folks listening of like, hey, this was really something that helped me go to make that 10X move, or, to grow the way that you've grown?
Yeah. So the first learning experience was when Janet moved out of that first unit, that first single family home I bought. It was 1117 Sheffield Street in Bel Air, Texas. I was happy for 6 or 7 months, right? Because boom, that $200 surplus over the debt was coming, over the loan was coming in. And then her and her sister moved out because I wasn't responding to her calls. And dude, I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything. I don't know how to rent this place. I don't know how to run an ad. I don't know how to, I don't know how to replace her. I didn't know how to write a lease. Like, I knew nothing, and I was terrified. And so I started studying. I started studying Sam Zell and Donald Brent and even Fred Trump, President Trump's father. What had they done? Well, none of them bought single family homes. They had all bought or built multifamily. So my next deal would be 48 units. That changed my whole world. It took me from being a real estate investor and manager to a real estate investor. Mm-hmm. About 48 units in Vista, California. And 20 days later, bought 38 units in Point Loma. This is in San Diego. And followed that up with 92 units in the same market. And like in the period of 12 months, I had, what is that? I don't know, just under 300 units. This is the late 90s. Savings and loans had busted. It was almost impossible to get a loan on multifamily. You had more U-Hauls leaving California than coming in. It was a fantastic time. And back then, the permits, just to permit a multifamily in California at that time was like, I don't know, $50,000 a unit. And I was buying the units for like 60. So I knew I was stealing. I knew it was a good deal. It was so obvious. That's the beautiful thing about real estate. I mean, if you guys want to make an impact, when it's right, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
It is not, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to sell it. It's just like, I'm converting fiat cash. And this is before we were printing money at scale the way we do today.
Right.
I'm converting, depreciation asset cash into an asset that you get tax write-offs from, cash flow, and long-term appreciation. I made that first deal I did, that 48 units, I made almost $4 million in 37 months. Still have that money, by the way. 1031 did. I've transferred it like 4 times now. That $4 million is probably worth $40 million today.
Yeah.
Never paid taxes on it. It's just a beautiful way to invest. I have 5 companies. Real estate's one of them. It's now our biggest company. It didn't start like that. But if you just give it time and buy the right assets and you're disciplined and buy through all cycles and never over leverage, it's just when you're going to get rich, not if.
Yeah. Well, I love your perspective on real estate's a way to convert fiat cash into real assets. So you're converting something that depreciates to something that appreciates.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good segue. I mentioned in your intro, but you're working on a Bitcoin real estate fund. So what's your perspective on kind of Bitcoin? Obviously, the national debt is rising, global debt is rising, and folks are starting to think more critically about, putting capital into things like cryptocurrency, stable coins, stuff like that. So what are you thinking in that regard?
Well, I'll speak about the Bitcoin itself, not so much all the altcoins that can be infinitely printed forever. Look, if you're a real estate investor, you like anything finite. You're going to typically move to things that are special. You're probably not, no offense to any of the real estate investors, but by survey, real estate investors are not typically the highest graduating members of their college. They're also not connected. All this appealed to me, by the way. Mm-hmm. They're not extremely sophisticated and they're not very complicated. And they're typically conservative by nature. So if you like real estate, once you see Bitcoin for what it is, you're going to be interested in it, curious at the minimum. Now, because you're a real estate investor, you don't want the downside. You're conservative in nature. You're a conservative investor. You don't like to take a lot of risk. Then you're going to be kind of repelled from Bitcoin. But what we did was I've been studying Bitcoin for 13 years. I'm not an advocate of buying it directly. What I'm doing is I'm buying real estate, best-in-class real estate, and I'm combining it, merging it with Bitcoin. Still below replacement cost of the asset. There's a critical hypothesis for where you want to be so that you're, 1, not over-leveraged, and 2, you're still cash flow positive. But we'll buy a piece of real estate, best-in-class, under replacement cost, which you can steal at scale right now across America.
Yep.
It's a big hidden story nobody knows about. Like, we're stealing real estate right now. And then what we do is we add Bitcoin to get back to replacement costs. We're still cash flow positive, and we merge the two in an LLC and then offer to our investors.
Interesting. I love that.
I just bought a deal out of bankruptcy in Boca Raton. It's 366 units. I bought it out of Blackstone debt from Blackstone, $235 million. We added $100 million worth of Bitcoin. So we'll have $100 million in cash, $140 million in debt, and $100 million in Bitcoin. This will take a piece of real estate that should be worth $350 to $450 million to $1 billion in the next 5 years, or at least it has the potential to do that.
Because the Bitcoin appreciation as well.
Because we have the volatility of the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The upside potential of the Bitcoin, which the real estate does not have.
Yeah.
But it's got that stable, nice, gradual, up to the right of real estate with the cash flow and the depreciation, both of which Bitcoin doesn't have. But merge the two and you get like a superpower.
Yeah. And I think a key piece of what you just described is you're still below replacement cost.
Yeah.
Even with all of that. So that's a big part of our thesis, by the way. We buy way below replacement cost. We add some value and then it's still below replacement cost. I often call that space the forgotten middle. There's a ton of attention that goes to Class A new construction development. There's a ton of attention that goes to affordable housing, Class C stuff. And there's this stuff. I mean, I think you said you can steal it across America right now. There is just this forgotten middle that is on clearance that is just still such a great opportunity. Is that where you're putting your efforts?
Yeah. Look, we bought last year. We typically focus on institutional quality assets, which means it's not the grade of it. It's who owned it before us, which is institutions. Mm-hmm. So the big insurance companies, the MetLifes, the New York Lifes, the Nuveen's, the Prudentials, they own massive amounts of real estate at scale in this country. Also the Starwoods, the Avalons, the Camdens. Well, they have a fun life and they have an expectation on their returns, which sometimes forces them to sell before they really want to. Mm-hmm. We bought $800 million worth of real estate from an insurance company last year, paid cash for it, paid $600. We know we're $200 million it's just win.
Right.
I'm paying 2015 prices in 2025 with 2025 rents in markets where I know over the next 10 years, rents will double.
Yeah.
And I would just tell your listener, your viewer, or your audience, guys, look for the markets. There's probably 15 markets in America where the rents will double in the next 10 years. And you could take those 15 markets, let's say 15 markets, and those that have already gotten there, the New York, San Francisco's, not LA, but some of those top tier, most expensive markets, probably blue cities, Democratic cities.
Yeah.
Very liberal. Look at where any traffic's coming out of those cities into a red-based state, and you're going to see rents explode in those markets to probably double what they are today, from an average 2,000 to 4,000. Because the person moving from New York to Miami will pay $4,000 and not even think about it. They're still saving, they're probably 20% on their rent.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so Miami's a good example. Like, what, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of you mentioned 15 markets. What are some of the markets you're pretty hot on right now?
Miami, Fort Lauderdale, St. Petersburg, not Tampa, but St. Petersburg more than Tampa itself. Dallas will be a super city. Austin needs a break. Nashville needs a break, but there'll be monster cities. There's just oversupply in those markets. They're going to get exhausted. We've been to Austin and Nashville 6 different times and couldn't buy. Same thing with Dallas, but it'll happen.
Yeah.
There'll be a moment, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there'll be a moment where you're going to be able to go back into the LAs and San Diegos and steal real estate there as well because of some of their policies. We've looked at New York and Chicago. Chicago has no new building in the last 18 months. It probably has the highest rent growth of all the cities in the country because there was no build out. So they're going to see a supply shortage in those markets. So you could see the same response there.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really fascinating. And one of the things that you talked about, again, we like to kind of focus on this impact angle. People migrating to some of those other areas is one thing. And I think also, if you just look at, what you're doing, it sounds like you're maybe buying assets out of some sort of distress, like maybe the seller has some distress, or maybe it sounds like the insurance company has a loan on it that's distressed.
Yeah.
So you're taking a non-performing asset and making it performing.
Yeah.
Is that a part of your strategy as well?
We're buying. Distress comes in many forms, okay? Because, it comes distressed asset. We don't really want those.
Yeah.
I don't want anything that's been neglected. They neglected it for some reason because there's no upside to continue to reinvest in. So I really don't want that stuff. If I was getting started in my career, I would, because I'm willing to work and push and shove and, value add and do all the work. I don't really want that in this cycle. I really want great assets that have a distressed owner, partnership, fund, or debt. Look, real estate never corrects until there's a debt problem. All real estate problems preceding that is a debt problem. You have a massive debt problem in this country. We have $4 trillion of maturing debt across hotels, apartments, and anything considered commercial.
Yeah.
And that problem's not going away. The only person that can actually solve that problem is Donald Trump. And he would have to force our European partners and Asian partners to buy 10-year treasuries through the tariffs, which he probably could pull it off. He's the only guy that can solve that problem, though. 10 years, unless 10 years come down, you have $4 trillion, about $3.7 trillion worth of long-term debt that's maturing. And it's not worth 3.7 trillion. It's probably worth 2.8 trillion, which means somebody's going to take $1.6 million worth of haircuts.
Yeah.
On great assets.
Yeah. And you see that creating opportunities for acquisition over the next few years. Do you view that mostly in multifamily or other asset classes as well? Where are you seeing that?
I mean, certainly you see it in office, but I don't want to be in office because the amount of capex is so prohibitive. I don't think you need to go there. This idea that office is going to become apartments is hysterical to me. And, one out of 100 deals work like that. It's going to be better just to basically nuke the building and start over from the ground up, which is what they're going to do at Santa Monica, by the way. I think it's apartments, personally. I think the best opportunity in this country is apartments for one reason, is that it's a usable, needable, affordable way for people to live. And it's not like in the 80s and 90s where you were, the people that bought apartments are basically poor people. 11% of all the millionaires in America today live in an apartment. 75 million baby boomers that own homes. There's, I don't know, $13 trillion worth of debt stuck in single family homes. Most of the old people, I'm not including myself in that conversation, by the way, but most of the baby boomers, they don't want a new home. They want to travel. They would rather be on Carnival cruises half the year than mowing their lawn. So they'd like to get that equity out of there. They'd probably prefer to rent 1,000 square foot, got a social environment around them, great amenities, movie theater, great security. You can Uber your food in, keep your dog there for, $2,000 or $3,000 a month. It's really a good deal.
Yeah. Well, and I've got to think that part of that too is, home prices have continued to climb from a purchase perspective, whereas renting prices are really at a discount. I think it's like 52% cheaper to rent than to
100%.
Buy a home right now.
In top 50 cities.
Yeah, exactly. And so
no insurance, no PMI. Okay. Insurance is going to kill housing. I wrote to Bill Pulte at the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I said, Bill, if you want to solve the housing problem, you have to start with insurance.
Yeah.
Because it's a quicker fix. In multifamily, as you know, you're a big multifamily guy. Okay. You're getting killed in insurance. You're being forced to carry minimum amounts of storm coverage that is 10 times higher than it needs to be. Most of the insurance losses were not in multifamily. They were in single family homes.
Yeah.
But we're getting penalized. And, right now they want me to carry $100+ million minimum storm coverage out of a main storm. And I'm like, I've never had more than a $7 million loss in 1 year over my entire portfolio. Why would I carry 13 times what's necessary? Because they want to be protected.
Well, one of the things that I like and appreciate about you is you're an innovator. You're doing this real estate and Bitcoin thing. Have you thought about like a captive insurance policy or trying to figure out a solve for the insurance space?
Yeah, we have. The first thing we did was we went to Lloyd's and in 3 different locations around the world, England, Bermuda, and New York, and met with those directly and told our story and said, look, we don't want to be treated like Starwood. We are entrepreneurial investors. When a storm's coming, I get video of the managers on the properties removing all the chase lounges. Okay. A lot of these losses are not necessary. Okay. Most losses could have been averted had management simply gone outside and picked everything up. In Florida, you want to clean the palm trees and you want to get rid of coconuts. Coconuts in a 100-mile-an-hour wind become bullets.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this can be preempted, but if you're an insurance company, Starwood, Camden, Avalon, you're so big at this point, you got 120,000 units. You've never even been on them. You don't know what they are. You're not managing the asset as a owner. You're managing it as a fund and you're not paying attention. No offense to Barry Sternlicht, but Barry's not visiting the properties anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And it makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think just the industry is not set up to be agile and entrepreneurial, the way that you are, the way that I had to be. I guess I have a question along those lines. So like you've obviously accomplished a lot and you've, had a ton of success. 5 billion of it is impressive. But where do you go from here and what does legacy look like for you? What do you hope to have accomplished when you're not
Yeah.
here anymore?
Well, look, I am a natural disruptor. Okay. Like I love disruption. I love going against the status quo. It's probably because I was brought up in a small factory town and, wasn't embraced by the community the way I wanted to be. And my dad died when I was 10. So I wasn't fishing and hunting the way they do in Louisiana. So a little bit chip on my shoulder. My goal right now in real estate is I'm going to disrupt the entire REIT industry. It's $4 trillion of money is sitting in real estate investment trusts. They cannot invest in Bitcoin. They cannot do this. Yeah. Okay. They're slow. They're boring. They can never, there's 190 REITs in this country that have ignored me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to beat the shit out of them here in a little bit. Okay. Their organizational papers. I wrote about this in a book called If You're Not First, You're Last. If you're competing with somebody bigger than you, find out what they can't do and do it.
Yeah.
They cannot put Bitcoin by law on their balance sheet. So we're going to basically merge these two assets together. The REITs are all underperforming. I mean, everybody knows that. It's not a secret. They're having redemption gates and not hitting their performance standards. But if when we merge these two together, we'll take an asset as good as you can imagine that does, let's say 5% cash flow. And we'll take an asset, combine it with the right amount of Bitcoin, and over 5 years, we think we hit 20 to 30% returns on a regular. And create new products out of these two funds being merged together, because now, and I'm talking to Fannie and Freddie about this as well, both in single family homes and multifamily, when you put Bitcoin and real estate together, you have an illiquid asset with the most liquid in the world. Okay. Yeah. There's nothing more liquid than Bitcoin. You have one that cash flows real estate, one that writes off real estate. Bitcoin doesn't do either one of those. Mm-hmm. So you have this beautiful vehicle of liquidity and illiquidity, and you got rid of the volatility of the Bitcoin going up and down because you have the stability of the Bitcoin. So the goal is to take that public next year. There'll be some announcements about that later in this year. We have 5 funds done already. We'll do 12 by the fall. We'll have 12 completely funded and done. So I hope that has an effect. I also want to work with the federal government to talk about how renters, I've been fighting for this for years. Renters should have their rent qualify them to purchase a home. That should be a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. You need to figure out how to reduce insurance costs in this country. It's ridiculous. It is the most inflationary thing on real estate, second to maybe the building costs and the permits. And then the last thing is I just want to be a good example for other people about the American dream is, alive and well. And if you're willing to push hard and have good ideas and see them through and do the right thing, you could be like me. Like most of the time I wake up, I'm like, dude, I can't even believe I've done what I've done.
Yeah.
And I'm not satisfied with what I've done. So
it's probably just the way you're wired. I'm wired the same way, but you've already created a huge impact in the industry and in the world. And I love your vision for where you go from here. You're not stopping, you're keeping it going. And I'm excited for that. So we're going to jump into our lightning round. I feel like the listeners have gotten to know you professionally. They understand how you think of impact and how you think of investing. Let's get to know you personally. So what would you say is your biggest win? Now, you could take this any direction, personal or professional.
Yeah. I mean, look, my biggest win is probably, I got off of drugs when I was 25 years old. I was on drugs for 9 years of my life, from 16 to 19. And to recover from that, go to treatment, come out, never use again, and then help a lot of people is probably my biggest victory. Number 2, my kids. I have fantastic kids. We homeschool them, so I can't exclude the kids.
Yeah, those are 2 great wins. And I by the way, I just really resonate with both of them. I got expelled from high school for selling drugs and doing drugs. And
oh, wow.
I got locked up a little bit later in life for the same. And my 3 girls are the same thing on my end, just really the highlight and the win of my life. So what would you say is a favorite movie of yours? What do you like to watch?
Armageddon, dude. Armageddon, Braveheart, The Godfather, but probably Armageddon. I've watched Armageddon probably more than any other person in the world. And every time I've watched it, 17 times at least, I've cried every single time. Mm-hmm. So don't tell anybody, but every time it rips me.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think that shows that you've got a good heart, and it's a great movie. How about a favorite food? What do you like to eat?
Dude, I'll eat anything that you're paying for.
That's good. Well, we already talked about we got to get together, so I'll
Yeah.
make sure I
I
pay
mean, a
for
good
something good.
hamburger. I had a hamburger in the south of France 2 weeks ago that was fantastic. Hamburger and French fries, and it was spectacular. I don't know what made it so good, but maybe it was the company.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes that is what makes the meal is who you're with. What's a current way in which you're trying to grow personally or professionally? Like, what's a current growth edge? How are you developing your craft right now?
So I read a lot. I'm on a book every week. I use Spaces a lot on X to learn from other people. There's some great rooms there on crypto, on bonds, on money. Tremendous amounts of intelligence sitting on X that people are not giving enough credit to or don't know about. And I use AI a lot. Like I'm working to go public right now, and I had a meeting with Mike Saylor. Mike says, Grant, you need to put all your AIs on deep search, bro, and find out the answer to every question you want. It's all there for you. Just put it on deep search, learn how to ask it great questions. I literally walked out of a 2-hour Grok session with just me and Grok. Came out, felt like I had the inspiration of a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, I could become the most intelligent person in the world.
Yeah, I know. It is crazy. And the deep research functionality is insane.
It's insane.
It goes away for 10, 15 minutes, scours the internet, teaches you and learns more than you ever could, with a 4-year education. So very cool. You mentioned you read a lot. I know you mentioned X and crypto, but you also mentioned you read a book a week. Any good books that you're reading these days that you'd recommend?
Let's see. What am I reading right now on Broken Dollar right now? I'm reading. Let's see what else I got for you. One of my favorite books, Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. A lot of controversy around it, but I've read that book 7 times.
Wow.
Let's see what else I got. I got Sapiens, Price of Tomorrow, Bitcoin Standard, Creature from Jekyll Island. You kind of see where I'm stuck right now.
Yeah.
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, a good friend of mine. The Fair Tax book, fantastic book, by the way. If I ran for president, I would definitely employ the Fair Tax. The book by Isaacson on Elon Musk. I've read all these books this year.
Yeah. Wow.
And got a bunch more to read. So
yeah, definitely some themes.
Whatever
there
It Takes by Steve Schwartz was fantastic.
Okay. Yeah. And you can kind of tell from what you're reading how it connects to some of the stuff you're doing. You're trying to accomplish some big things. I'm really excited about your real estate Bitcoin project. If folks want to connect with you, what's the best way to follow you or get connected to what you're up to?
Well, if you look for me online, it's pretty easy. It doesn't we made it pretty simple for people. So just search the name Grant Cardone. And for any of the real estate investors, you can see what we're doing at cardonecapital.com. There's a prospectus on our current offering there. And I'm on our 45th deal, 28 funds, raised $1.7 billion without going to banks or family offices. And so we probably the most successful direct to retail investor crowdfunding in the world. And our real estate is outperformed most of the marketplace for the last 10 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, Grant Cardone, for being on the show. Thanks for sharing your powerful story, your insights. I learned a ton. I'm sure our listeners learned a ton. Thank you to our listeners for listening in to another episode of the Real Returns podcast. We will catch you all next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Real Returns podcast. We hope that you learned something new about how you can invest to make a lasting impact on those around you. Please be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your podcasts, leave us a review, and share about us on social media. We hope you will join us for our next episode, where we will be continuing the conversation around impactful real estate investing.